Guys, when you wake up in the morning, are you just rip roaring ready to go? Like, are you just like, boom, hit the world running, Mitch?
Never.
Yeah.
Never.
Like,
I'm a night owl, not a morning person at all.
How about you, Troy? When the alarm goes off in the morning, or do you even need an alarm? Do you just wake up at 4:30 with the birds?
It's so funny. I have my sleep patterns have changed so dramatically. I wake up sometimes at 4:30 and I'm awake and ready to go. It used to be I would sleep until 9 a.m. and it was hard to wake up. Crazy change.
That was because you changed your job. You went off shift work, erratic schedules, that sort of stuff.
Had a baby. Yep.
Needs an alarm clock when you got a baby.
Yeah.
So I'm the same way with you, Mitch. Like when I wake up, I am not rip roaring ready to go. Who are these people that are? It seems like it takes me a while to ramp up and into the day, into the morning. But Troy has an article here that could help us.
Okay.
If you're like drowsy in the morning and you have a hard time kind of get going, he's got an article that he's going to share with us with some ideas of things we can try. Now, it'll be curious to see if we've actually tried them and they've worked or not. So, Troy, we'll get to you in a second. I guess we need to say this. This is Who Cares About Men's Health with information, inspiration, and a different interpretation of men's health. My name is Scott. I bring the BS, the MD to my BS, Dr. Troy Madsen.
Hey, Scott.
And he's a Who Cares About Men's Health convert. It's producer Mitch.
It'll be interesting because I am suspicious of people who are awake in the morning.
I used to be too.
Yeah.
I used to just think they were just weird. And I thought it was genetic. I figured there has to be a genetic component and that's how they get up early. And we are just the way we are. This article suggests differently. So that's why I thought it was interesting.
All right. Well, let's talk about it. Let's dive into it, Troy.
Yeah. So this was a study that was done at UC Berkeley and published in the journal Nature, which is just, one of the most high profile journals you can get published in, because it was a really well done study. And they really asked that question, like, what is it about people where, they wake up in the morning and they're just chipper and alert and ready to go? And I'm curious for both of you. You both said you're not that way. Are there people in your lives who are that way?
My father.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's an early riser. He's one of those that's like, oh, well, I've been up since 5. It's like, oh, okay, good for you.
Right.
Like you win an award.
Yeah.
My dad was the same. He was a rancher, but I can't honestly tell you, and it's too late for me to ask if that was just out of necessity. Or if he was like, was it out of necessity and he was just rip roaring ready to go, or was it something else? Like, because you have to, so you just, what else are you going to do? Like he was in that generation, right?
Yeah. It's crazy. That's so funny. I was going to say my dad too. Like he's up early in the morning and he goes to bed late too. Like we've talked about short sleepers and how they don't actually exist. I think it exists in his case. Like he's a short sleeper and he's awake and ready to go. It's pretty remarkable. But they asked that question, who are these people? Or in general, is it something we can become if we are not that way? And they looked at 833 people, studied them for 2 weeks, and basically did all sorts of things over those 2 weeks just to see, number one, how are they sleeping? What kind of exercise are they doing? What's their diet like? And they used, basically a watch that they wore just to record their activity, their sleep patterns. And they even gave them different diets to see, okay, you guys are going to try this for breakfast. This group's going to try this, and let's see how that affects your sleep. And they really drew some interesting conclusions. They basically found 3 different things really factored in. And I'm going to let you, Mitch, did you read the article? I'm going to let you guess what the 3 things were.
No, I haven't read it.
Scott read ahead.
Yeah,
so Mitch,
I did browse it.
So 3 things really jumped out. If you were to guess what helps people become more alert when they wake up in the morning, what would you say?
So from our Barron episodes and my own personal experience, having like consistent sleeping habits might be helpful. Exercise in the evenings, maybe to like kind of get you tired. And then like a really healthy breakfast.
Interesting. Like, how would you describe a healthy breakfast? Like, what's a healthy breakfast for you?
Maybe there's like lots of protein. Maybe like oatmeal. And maybe it's an oatmeal. Yeah, it's
so
not
maybe a little
like
higher in carbs.
90s balanced breakfast where it's like toast and milk and orange. It's healthier than that.
Yeah. Well, there were, and you're exactly right on all 3 of those. And that's where kind of, but I will say you're exactly right on the topics, but it was interesting within those kind of what really came out there. So in terms of sleep, you're right. I think there's value in terms of just having the same habits. We've talked about that before. But they said that when people slept longer, they were more alert. Like if they slept in a little bit, that surprised me. I don't know if you feel that way, but oftentimes I feel like if I'm sleeping in like past when I would normally get up, I feel kind of sluggish. But in this study, they found that it seemed like when people slept a little bit on the longer side, they seemed to do better. But then they concluded it's because we're also sleep deprived anyway, that when they actually did sleep longer, they were getting that 7 to 9 hours that we really need. So that was their conclusion, that maybe it's not, if we're already getting 7 to 9 hours, it's not about getting, 8 to 10 hours. It was more, people are probably kind of sleep deprived. So getting that little extra sleep made a big difference.
That's interesting. I find that to be true for me. Like my alarm goes off at 6, but whenever we have times where I don't have to go to work and I don't set an alarm, I just kind of naturally wake up at 7.
Yeah.
So I wonder if I just need an extra hour of sleep. I wonder if I need to go to bed a little bit earlier. Interesting.
Yeah, maybe so. Yeah. How much are you sleeping, Scott, at night?
That's a loaded question, right? Because I went down this path. I used to think I was real religious about going to bed at 10 and waking up at 6. So that put me at 8 hours, right? But then I got a Fitbit and I learned, no, you're not going to bed at 10. You're not going to bed till maybe 10:45 some nights.
Oh yeah.
I think the where I was telling myself the story is I start heading to bed at 10, right? By the time I'm actually in bed and et cetera, et cetera. So, I think I need to really look again, honestly, at what's going on in my life. So I think I'm close to at least 7, probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe on the lower end of that recommended amount. Yeah. And it's tough too, because it's like, you got to have like lights out at 10 and then ideally falling asleep pretty quickly, which most people don't do to really hit that 8 hours if you're doing 10 to 6. What do you usually sleep, Mitch?
I've been doing better lately, but where it's more about having the consistency to it all.
Yeah.
But I'm around 7 hours a night. I feel pretty good about that. Yeah.
Interesting.
Go to bed around like 11 or midnight, because if trying to get to bed early, I'm not tired. That's not the way my rhythms work. And so, get to bed around 11, midnight, wake up 6, 7. Yeah, I'm okay.
Interesting.
Not great, but I'm okay.
Yeah. No, it's funny. And I've gone through this work transition recently where I now actually sleep at night, which is nice. But I've kind of found like I get into this interesting pattern. Like after I do a long run, like that night I'll sleep 9 hours and I hear the alarm go off and it's hard to get up. And then the next morning, kind of the same thing. But then as the week progresses, I'm usually asleep by 9. Some mornings I'm awake by 4:30, and I'm good to go. So I'm sure there's some variation for all of us, just depending on what we've done for activities that day or stress levels or all sorts of things. But anyway, like I said, in this study, they at least found people who were sleeping a little longer were a little more alert. And I don't know how that translates just into trying to create a habit, but I think it probably gets back to what you said, Mitch, in terms of just consistency, and then hopefully making sure that consistency is the amount of sleep you need.
So it sounds like the takeaway from this point is that probably most of us are sleep deprived, probably not getting enough sleep. So as a result, in this study, they discovered when people do actually sleep in later, they're getting closer to the amount that they really need.
Yeah, that was my takeaway. And it sounds like that's what they were concluding. I don't think they were telling everyone you need to sleep in every day because it's just not practical. And then it's not sleeping in anymore because you've got a new habit. So
got it. Okay.
And then they noted the breakfast piece. And you mentioned that, Mitch. You mentioned like a high protein breakfast. And then you mentioned, well, what about oatmeal?
Yeah.
And in this study, they actually found, so they had people try 3 different breakfasts. One was, your classic kind of high sugar cereal.
Love it.
You can imagine how that went.
Amazing. Like it was part of the complete breakfast. Applejack.
Exactly.
Like it just makes it, it makes my morning go.
Yeah, you get some good bowl of Frosted Flakes. You just feel great for the rest of the day.
Mm-hmm.
No, they found those people really crashed and didn't do well. So, so that was not the recipe for success. And then they did like the high protein breakfast. And you might think, well, maybe the high protein breakfast, maybe that's the way to go.
Because you see on social media a lot, that's what the quote unquote fitness influencers say, is you should be eating a high protein breakfast. To minimize that insulin response.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's something I've kind of embraced also. Like I look at my breakfast and it's pretty high protein. Like it's 2 protein bars, it's a protein drink, and it's a banana. That's my breakfast.
Oh, wow.
So that is
processed food much?
Exactly. I know that's the downside of it, but that's the best way for me to get a decent amount of protein in my diet. Like I get 50 grams to start the day.
Wow.
Cause I don't get a ton of protein otherwise, just based on my diet. So But that's probably not the best approach for alertness. So they actually found a diet that's higher in carbohydrates, a breakfast that's higher in carbohydrates and complex carbohydrates was really the key to morning alertness. So there, I think we're talking about oatmeal, whole grains, things like that, where you get those carbs, they get you feeling good, they get you going, but they're not those simple sugars that cause that really high glucose spike and then that big drop. And they actually looked at those glucose levels too, and they found that people that had that, that more even response, that more, kind of what you'd expect with better glucose tolerance. Those are the ones that were more alert in the morning, not that high spike. So it was interesting. It made me really rethink maybe how I should be eating breakfast.
Yeah. I want to share my breakfast because I'll tell you what. So I don't know if this article, we're talking about this notion of waking up ready to tackle the day. I don't know if the way they're defining that is as soon as your eyes open, bam, you're ready to go. Or if they're defining it as, there's a certain amount of time that it's going to take for anybody to be a wide awake and alert and ready to go. But I can tell you that the moment I start eating my breakfast in the morning, I will feel better regardless. If I can make it to that point, I've told myself, if you make it to that point, you're going to be good. And this is such a goofy breakfast I eat. I take broccoli, cauliflower, red bell pepper, zucchini, mushrooms, and I kind of stir fry that in a pan.
You stir fry your breakfast?
Yeah. Wow. I just put olive oil in there. I mean, it's really, I don't have to stir fry it. I put olive oil in there, throw it in there. You can flip it a couple times. You're good.
Okay.
So you crack an egg into it?
Is this an omelet? Or are we talking?
No, see, the reason I'm doing it this way is because I couldn't make omelets. So I decided for this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I do that, but then I also have 2 full eggs.
Okay.
And I have half a cup to 3/4 cups of cooked oatmeal.
Okay.
And that's my breakfast every single day with a little bit of milk and a little bit of fruit and some nuts. I should say I have some seeds and nuts. I have pumpkin seeds and I have walnuts, just a sprinkle on top of the oatmeal. And no matter how crappy I feel when I wake up, I always feel 100% better after I have that breakfast. And I feel really, really good. And it makes sense, right? Because it's 2 eggs is decent protein, some milk in there is decent protein. But it's not protein heavy by any stretch, but there's a lot of complex carbs in there.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. You're getting a lot of vegetables in there. And what else did you got your oatmeal as well? So
I understand why that makes me feel good then. That, this study kind of reinforces that.
Did you find when you started doing that your stomach about 10 a.m. was just killing you? Or
no, I have no problem with that. Strangely, I don't have increased gas. My stomach doesn't kill me. It doesn't bother me at all. I love it.
Yeah.
And like if my stomach's upset, I'll feel better after that breakfast. Like that breakfast to me is a little magical in that way.
Wow.
That whatever's going on in my morning is if I can just eat that, I know I'm going to feel better.
Interesting. I'm curious now. I kind of want to try your approach. Like you said, mine is very processed and it's very protein heavy. And after seeing this, I thought maybe I need a little different approach, but I think the prep time on your breakfast might be a big barrier for me just because it sounds like you do have to pull out a frying pan and stuff or whatever you're doing.
It takes a half hour.
Okay.
To make my breakfast. Now, in that half hour, I'm not constantly doing something, right? So I take time to clean the kitchen. I take time to journal. I take time to do other things. So I am multitasking a little bit. Yeah. But it definitely is a time commitment. It's not, a 5-minute deal.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're investing in it and it works for you. I don't know. Mitch,
to me, it's worth it. To me, it's worth the half hour. Absolutely.
Yeah. No, it sounds like it. Are you doing anything similar, Mitch? Are you?
No. Interestingly, I did have to reassess my breakfast my regular breakfast in the last year or so, as I'm trying to figure out brain chemistry meds, right? And so one of the things that I've been told is that some of these ADHD meds will work better and last longer through the day and be more effective if you have a large, high amount of protein start of the morning. So my approach has been I have 3 or 4 scrambled eggs. I have this oat/protein shake thing that I'll down. Sometimes I'll have a little bit of yogurt on the side, whatever. I'm just trying to force feed as much protein as possible, hoping that my brain will have a good day.
Wow.
But I don't necessarily feel particularly alert still. It's don't talk to me till I've had my coffee and Adderall,
Yeah.
But it is interesting to hear that that was not ideal either.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if there's something that I can do a little in between to get more of the early alertness, and also the bit of higher protein to see if the meds will work longer.
And I think you need to ask, what's the protein dose to optimize those meds? You might be going way too far, right? It's
probably.
Not like, yeah. So like, what is the minimum dosage? Because as you described your breakfast, I'm just like, ugh, that made me think I'd be sick by 10.
Yeah, it's really nice if they gave you like a grams of protein target or something, because I wonder if it's a little heavy on the protein. But
because I think a lot of times us guys can go too overboard, right? Like if little's good, then a lot's so much better.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, that gets us to the number 3 thing, and Mitch, you mentioned it already as well, exercise. Because it's interesting. They found it's not evening exercise. They found evening exercise is actually, and we've talked about it here and there before, was actually a predictor of less morning alertness. It's a high, what they call like a exercise spike, like an exercise acceleration during the day, earlier in the day. And so it sounds like they were referring more to kind of a higher intensity exercise sometime during the day that was not in the evening. And that was something that seemed to help people feel more alert the next day.
Did they define what higher intensity exercise is? Like what kind of things are we talking about?
I didn't find it in there. They specifically said that. They just referred to exercise acceleration. That was their word. And so I'm assuming that means something that's going to get your heart rate up,
Yeah, sure.
Not just the walk around the block, but something a little more vigorous, whether that's vigorous strength training, running, biking, something like that. And again, not in the evening, but something during the day, maybe even in the morning. And that was what really seemed to make a difference.
And probably not too vigorous either, because I think if you go again with this notion of, if a little's good, a lot's better, guys, right? I think if you go too vigorous, that can actually compromise your sleep at times.
I think so. Yeah. I think like I said, I kind of experience that on a weekly basis, because I'll do these long runs and I'll go out for 5 hours and it's early in the morning. So I should have time to recover by the time I go to bed that night. But that night it is a weird sleep. It's like a different sleep. Like I feel kind of amped still. And just like I just sleep a lot warmer. So I think, it's probably not like a long, intense exercise. Probably, that 30 minutes we talk about. I think that's maybe 30 minutes to an hour is probably a sweet spot there.
Yeah. And break a sweat. Matthew McConaughey rule.
Exactly.
Do something that makes you sweat a little bit.
That's right. Yeah. Do something that makes you break a sweat every day. And I think that's kind of what they were referring to there. So
I found that when I used to strength train really intensely, because my goal was either body size or strength, that I didn't sleep as well. So yeah, I think that intensity probably is important, but just getting some activity. All right. So to summarize, be honest about how much sleep you're actually getting. Are you a little bit sleep deprived? Are you between that 7 and 9 hours? Are you closer to the 9? That might be why you're having a hard time in the morning. Number 2, that higher protein, but not like only protein, or was it a higher carbohydrate? It was a higher complex carbohydrate diet is what it was in the morning breakfast.
Yeah.
So I'd imagine you still want to get a little bit of protein, but don't be afraid of some carbs in the morning as long as they're complex. And then 3, make sure that you're getting a little bit of activity earlier in the day, not in the evening, and that can help with your morning alertness. Did I get all those?
You did. And I have to throw in one final tidbit that gave me hope and should give everyone hope. They actually looked at twins, so identical twins, and said of these twins, how many of these are morning people and high morning alertness versus how many are not. And they found that genetics seem to account for only about 25% of morning alertness.
Oh, interesting.
So kind of the takeaway there is, there's a genetic component, but it's not like we're destined to be morning people just based on our genetics. And so I thought that was kind of cool.
And I think one final thing is, if you perhaps try this, if you take stock in your life and you try these 3 things, for a period of time, I'd imagine a month or 2. I mean, there's nothing that's going to happen overnight. And you don't feel things are better, then it might be worth looking, like Mitch did, at a sleep study. Are you getting good quality sleep at night? Is there some other issue that's contributing to it? Those are always possibilities, but this is a good place to start. It seems like. Would you say that's right, Dr. Troy Madsen?
I would say it's a good place to start. And it gave me a lot to think about, like I said, especially on the morning breakfast piece, because I do feel like I'm a lot more alert now in the morning, but it would be nice to feel more alert. So,
well, let us know what you think. Have you tried these things? Did they work for you? What are your thoughts? As always, we love to hear from you, and it's easy to do. Just email us, hello@thescoperadio.com, hello@thescoperadio.com. Thanks for listening. Thanks for caring about men's health.